this camp from a number of different people, and it certainly lives up to the description that I received. Just an outstanding opportunity for you all to get better. I'm going to jam-pack about 40 minutes worth of information in probably about 18 minutes or so. So you're going to have to stay with me. You're going to have to move. You're going to have to listen. One of the things I was impressed with just standing over there, I took a look through the crowd, and I could see that the great majority of the guys were paying attention to Jerome up here. You're watching, you were listening, you were trying to catch every single word that came off of his lips. That's the way you make it in this business, man. I can walk within the first 15 minutes to the young guys in our meetings in terms of professional football and tell you whether or not he's going to be one that catches on quickly or one that, you know what, it's going to take him just a little while. Because he never takes his eyes off the speaker and he hears every single word that he says. I'm going to give you 6 pillars of effective leadership. Obviously, you're here and you're going to learn a lot of great things about leadership. Your sound mind and sound body. But what we want to do is just try to give you a couple more things to add to it. You know, why is leadership important? Number one thing is the best collection of players do not always win championships. When I was with the Indianapolis Colts, for example, our regular season was somewhat unimpressive ending, I should say. 12 wins and 4 losses. There were a couple of teams that had a little bit better record than we did. Lost 3 of our last 5 games. Against Jacksonville, they ran up the score on us 44-17. It was almost like a track meet. We were sort of going limping into the playoffs, more or less. But it was a team that had a lot of character and strong leadership. San Diego had the best record at 14-2. Baltimore was 13-3. New England was 12-4. The other championship team I was involved with, Baltimore. Regular season was going in the wrong direction. At the end of it, we ended up with 10 wins and 6 losses. We lost 4 out of our last 5 games. They fired our offensive coordinator. Right, Denver had the best record in football at that time, 13-3, 12-4. New England was 12-4 once again. The big difference between those two teams, or I should say the things that are similar about it, is the fact that they had a great team of leaders. Almost at every position, almost in every room. There were guys that were focused, that were committed, that understood the task at hand. So what I'm going to give you is 6 pillars of leadership. And I may use a story or two if I have time to kind of reinforce it. The first one is that you have to be competent at what you do. That's why you're here this week. You want to make certain that you do your best job every single time that you go out, whether it's in drill work, in the meeting rooms, or wherever it might be. Have to be competent. Have the suitable skill or knowledge of your experience, right? Fielding Yosef's made the statement, he said, to me, no coach in America has asked a player to make a sacrifice. He asked that he do just the opposite. To live clean, to come clean, to think clean. To stop doing all the things that hurt you mentally, physically, and morally, and start doing the things that make you keener, finer, and more competent. That's what this experience is all about. Guys that are interested in making it to the next level, whatever that might be, Division 2, Division 3, Division 1, you're going to have to prove yourself. You're going to have to be really competent at what you do. In the book Outliers, Dr. Caldwell talks about, in order to be a true professional, in order to be an expert at what you're doing, that you have to make certain that you put in about 10,000 hours of work. You guys got a lot of work to do in that regard, right? You got to commit to being an expert. The devil is in the details, the little things that are things that count. As the coaches are talking, you try to absorb every single word that they tell you about the technique and fundamentals that you use. They'll carry over. They translate, regardless of what the system is. In our system, you can see, for the most part, the details are the things that make a difference. The preparation is key. So a personal weekly schedule. I've been doing one of these since I was in 8th grade or so. Just in the habit. I'm a list guy. So this is my schedule here. You can see that every single day that I have is planned out. Every single meeting, everything I do from the time I get up in the morning to the time I go to bed in the evening. If there's a change, if there's an adjustment, I make that adjustment. But you have to be organized, you have to be able to adjust and move forward, because your opponent is preparing just as well as you are. In our particular case, we not only scout the opponents. As you can see, we look at every single phase. Some of these looks you guys are probably familiar with, but we also scout ourselves to make certain our opponent knows, or we know exactly what our opponent's looking at. There's a lot of work that goes into this game. Smart people play football, without question. In the National Football League, we do not have a guy on our team that can't think on his feet quickly and is not an expert at what he does. But it takes work. And you can see all of this information that we have and the things that you're going to have to make certain you become familiar with. Some of you already are within your high schools. I know you guys are using Huddle Pro and things of that nature to get you familiar. It moves up a couple notches when you go into college football and then on to professional football as well. So we have detailed preparation because we can predict behavior from our practice sessions. We can get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen come game time, right? It's dynamic, it's constantly moving, and it's not static. John Wooten, who's obviously believed in details, won probably 7, national championships in basketball. He said the basic attention to and the perfection of tiny details that might commonly be overlooked are the difference between champions and near champions. Humility is the next one. Why the Mighty Fall? Jim Collins did a great study. He looked at a number of different companies across the United States and found out he matched successful companies with unsuccessful companies. He wanted to see why they failed. The companies that excel matched humility and professional will, compelling modesty, workmanlike diligence, and more plow horse than show horse. That's one for young guys to learn, right? A little bit more substance than style. Coach Dungy is one of those guys that expresses a lot of humility in our business. No longer coaching, but certainly did probably better than anyone else in the business. He was not haughty, not arrogant. One that you guys probably don't remember, the coaches do, but you guys probably don't. Tom Landry coached the Cowboys for a number of years. Rolled on the sideline. No exaggerated pride. Very rarely changed expressions on the sideline, but won as many games as anybody in the business. The Bible tells you pride goes before the fall in Proverbs 16 and 18. It also tells you in Matthew, exalt thyself and be humble, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Regard success, obviously, is entitlement. Now, you'll see, this is a clip, just a quick clip, if you look at it, where you'll see Matthew Stafford talking about just different things. He's talking to players, he's talking to coaches, he's rallying guys behind him, so on and so forth. That goes on amongst all of our guys, for the most part. Calvin Burrell, one of the great jockeys of all time. Some of you guys just probably saw the Triple Crown winner. Calvin Burrell is one of those jockeys, a guy that's a pretty humble guy, pretty unique guy. The interesting thing about him is the fact that most of the time when you see a jockey that wins, there may be 1 or 2 people that run to shake hands with him. In this particular case, there were about 16 different people that came up with this guy shaking his hand. They wanted to know why that happened. It happened because of the fact that he, after he finished riding his horse and taking care of it, he'd go to the stables. He kind of helped the guy next to him in terms of his horse, cleaning his stable out, talking to him. He was a very humble individual. So you see that humility will draw people in. Arrogance will repel them. In our business and coaching, we have to learn and find a way to exalt men without inflating them and humble men without debasing them. So the next thing is authenticity. Authenticity, you have to be real. You have to be yourself, right? Even though you may have some big shoes to fill, there's only one of you. Very, very unique in everything that you do. Be comfortable in your own shoes. I was talking to our guys the other day and talking to them about there's some guys you can look at and you can say, you know what? This guy is better at doing this particular thing than anybody else in the league. That's what you're trying to accomplish. That's what fundamentals and techniques, and then also your uniqueness comes through in the game. Dr. Simmons talked about that when she was at Brown University, and she talked about the fact that your uniqueness is something to be celebrated. A lot of you come from different parts of the country. A lot of you have grown up differently, but you should use that as a strength and not a weakness. Vince Lombardi, there's only one Vince Lombardi. His grandson who works for us, Joe Lombardi, is an offensive coordinator. He's not trying to be Vince. There's only one Eddie Robinson, right? Great coach. Terrell Austin, who's our defensive coordinator, is not trying to be Eddie Robinson. He's trying to be the best Terrell Austin he can be, or the best Joe Lombardi he can possibly be. Leadership in our sport is an emotional game. In a public business, there are reporters and cameras all around you all the time. And if you're trying to be someone else and you're not authentic, pretty soon going to strip away all that veneer. And obviously they're going to see just who you really are, right? Phoniness doesn't work in our business. Bill McCartney told me something. He says, you know what? You have to understand, and this is early on in my career, that 3 words, you can't hide. You're out in front. People see you, everything you do, whether you're in the classroom, the hallways, on a date, at the movies. You can't hide. So do what you do best. All right, let's talk about motivation real quick. Right? In the book Crossing the Safety, Wallace Stegner said this. He says, no matter what the goal is, it leads through Pilgrim's Progress regions of hard work, motivation, dedication, stubbornness, and resilience under disappointment. If you're motivated by money, look at our sport, and you get in the comfort zone, when they get enough, that first big contract, you'll see their performance somewhat subside. If you're a publicity hound, dysfunctional and selfish goals, you'll understand that nothing lasts but the self-starter, guy that's intrinsically motivated, right? Competitive from the word go. So what we have to do in our business is kind of fuel your desire and cast a vision for you. To show exactly what you should be looking at and what you should be trying to attain, the goals you should be trying to attain. So we try to create an environment that's conducive to success in our business. Respect, recognition, autonomy, we give them a little rope, personal growth, feel like they're belonging, meaning, and obviously Caldwell talked about a number of these different things in his writings. Self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm a big believer in that. Be careful how you think. Your life is shaped by your thoughts. Or as a man thinketh, as it says in the Bible, so is he. Right? So we want to make certain that you think positive things about what you can get done. Believe in yourself from the word go. Resilience under disappointment. You probably heard Mark Burton's story. Caught cancer just after he finished his college career. Didn't think he'd make it to the pros. Had to battle bone cancer. Came through it. Obviously, he plays for the Giants. There's no excuses and no explanations for not succeeding. Some examples. This young man, first in his family to graduate from college, his uncle kicked him and his mother out of their house at the age of 12. His grandmother took them in. He felt like an outsider in his family due to the poor treatment of his mother. No one expected him to make it. Right? Bellamy's playing for his president. Bentley, excuse me. No father figure. No one in his family graduated or even went to college. Family members were jealous of success and tried to make him feel guilty. Cousin that was his best friend was killed. Feels that success is a personal decision. Anybody know who that is? Okay? This one you all, most of you should know, or maybe you won't. Had to walk to school through gang-infested streets surrounded by gunfire, robberies, drugs. Had to take multiple buses to get to practice. Never interested in gangs due to his love in sports. Roy Fuller. Man in the house at 12 years old. Mom put bills in her children's names, warmed up water on the stove to make a hot bath, decided not to compare himself to others and just make a better life. Right? So every single one of these guys have a different story. They have hardships. They were able to battle through, just like some of you do. But the thing they did not do is they did not make any excuses. Athletic, be competitive, handle disappointment. You get knocked down, it's just how quickly you can get up, right? How quickly you get up and respond is the key. Persistence. So some of you are going to face some very, very difficult times in your life. Some of you are going to face some tough times in terms of competition. But you have to persist until you succeed. There's an old saying that goes along with this. It says, I was not delivered in this world in defeat, nor does failure run in my veins. I am not a sheep waiting to be prodded by my shepherd. I am a lion and I refuse to walk, to talk, to eat with the sheep. I will hear not those who weep and complain, for their disease is contagious. Let them join the sheep. The slaughterhouse of failure is not my destiny. I will strive and strive again. Each obstacle I consider a mere detour to my goal and a challenge to my profession. I will persist until I succeed. Need a little grit, man. Right? Need some toughness. Need some grit. Got to be able to stick to it regardless of circumstance. But Thomas Jefferson said it best, I think. He says, nothing gives one person so much advantage over another as to remain cool and unruffled under all circumstances. Got to be able to play with poise. Focus in on your crisis. I'm going to skip this one and show you what it looked like at the end. This is what happens. Vito Mirror was actually in a vehicle. It caught on fire. He sat in that car and did not move. The reason why he did not move is because he was listening to his leader, who is the crew chief. He had on a headset. He's talking to him. He says, sit still. Don't move. If he jumps out, he jumps into the fire. Right? The guys that trained jumped over the wall, put the fire out. He was able to rejoin this particular race and hung in there and did quite well. But nevertheless, it's when things are going around you that are crazy, that are out of control, focus, listen, right? And keep moving. So last one, second before last, passion. Lack no zeal in your work, right? So one of the schools that you guys are interested in, somewhere, somehow, there's a lot of others besides these, Big Ten, SEC, whatever, right? Pac-10, so on and so forth. If your goals are such, keep focused on those goals, but you got to have passion in order to do it. Be excited about what we do. Believe in what you do, right, as a team. Passionate teams have great morale. So the last segment is service. I'm actually in the service business. Coaching is in the service business. I think oftentimes some coaches don't believe that, but that's what we're here for, right? We're not here for our own personal gain or anything, our own notoriety. Our business is to try to make certain that we do what George Patton did. He said, take care of your men, right? Take care of your men. Rick Binkle always said, if you do that, and you take care of the little things, all the big things will take care of themselves. Talked about it as a coaching business, right? A service business. My job is, each and every day, is to find out what I can do to give our guys an opportunity to get better. To understand where they are, at what stage of life, at what stage in terms of our preparation, and give them the opportunity to get a little bit better, right? And the last thing is, and I'll end up with, I think that's all I have time for, is the service to our community. All right? Service to our community.